If you're like me, you've contemplated going professional in some capacity with your magic, whether that's part-time, full-time. The dream is out there that you could make money doing what you love. In this episode of Erudite Magic, we're going to be talking about a book that just came to the market a few weeks ago that purports to do exactly what we're talking about. To help you understand what it would take to go from a hobbyist to a professional earning money performing magic for people, and specifically walk around and strolling magic. I'm going to share what I know about this book, discuss how it might help you, and in the end, I'll compare it to a few other books on the market so that you can get a sense of the value proposition. The book that we're talking about is Strolling for Dollars, subtitled How You Can Make a Living Doing Close-Up Magic by Jason Bird. Now, prior to hearing about this book, I had no idea who Jason Bird was. Jason is a professional magician working out of Las Vegas, Nevada. Jason has been performing magic, specifically walk around and strolling magic, for over 25 years and has done so at a high enough level to support his family of 5. So what is the book itself? It's a very meaty, hardback book with over 550 pages. The book is broken down into 3 bigger picture segments: the show, the business, and interviews. Within that initial section about the show, he breaks it down into 3 chapters: before the show, all the things you need to think about, how many tricks do you need, what about reset, how do you choose the effects you're going to perform, how are your angles, what do you wear. He then transitions to at the gig, where he talks about things like how to manage your pockets, how to approach a group, how to leave a group, what happens if you get offered a tip, what happens if you mess up, should you borrow objects, what happens when someone is being difficult in your group, and how do you end your strolling gig in the strongest way possible. The final section within the show portion of the book is kind of a catch-all for different things: what happens when you have to perform outside, tips for remembering names, what to do when there are kids at the event who are following you around, how do you handle it when the client asks you to do something specific. After he's covered this big section about your show, he transitions into the other side of show business, talking about things like marketing, business cards, websites, headshots, social media, how to get clients, how to get agents, ways to do add-ons to your show, contracts, deposits, testimonials, liability and insurance, your business structure, handling your taxes, and staying organized. All the things you need to make a successful attempt at show business. And this final section with the interviews, he shares some rather lengthy discussions with both some magicians that you've heard of and some you probably haven't. The ones that you've heard of would be people like Paul Draper, Caroline Raven, David Penn, and Brett Barry. But then he mixes it up with some people who have been performing in the trenches and offer real-world performing advice, but names that you might not have heard of. Now that I've given you an overview, let's talk about the formatting and what you can expect in this book, especially from each one of the sections. In terms of the formatting, being a book about business or how to get your business started, as you can expect, it's not really teaching you any tricks. Instead, focused on the business, it's primarily text-driven, very few illustrations or pictures, which is fine and what you would expect. The initial sections about your show and the business are the first 175-ish pages of the book. Now remember, I said that it was a total of 550 pages, so approximately 70% of the book is the interviews with the 12 magicians that he thought would benefit you. In that first section about your show, it is primarily focused on close-up or strolling magic because that's Jason's specialty. And in his mind, it's one of the best entry points for a magician. Most of us start off doing close-up magic, things with cards, coins, rubber bands, or whatever your particular focus in magic is. And if you want to turn that hobby into a way to make money, strolling magic is your entry point. You don't have to learn anything other than what you already know. You just need to learn how to put it together in the right order and get into an environment like this to start sharing what you already do. Now, if you're the kind of person who's always dreamed about this or thought about it, those 174 pages at the beginning are really gold. Jason claims to have performed for over 1 million people over 25 years and says that this book is essentially distilling 250 years worth of information. Now, whether that claim is hyperbole or not, I do agree that in a very simple and understandable way, Jason walks you through everything you need to consider to launch your own close-up or strolling magic business. Each of the interviewees that he talks to has a different perspective. Some perform trade show magic, some do shows in Las Vegas. Caroline Raven performs in Sweden. Each one of them shares some really interesting and different feedback, things for you to consider. There are some nuggets of gold shared, and I think reading this, you'll get inspired if your goal is to perform paid magic for people. Before we get into the value prop and maybe some of the things that I thought could have been better about this book, let me tell you about the sponsor of this week's video, Don's Magic and Books. As magicians, whether you are a professional or a hobbyist, I know that you're like me, you absolutely love magic books and learning magic from magic books. Don has you covered no matter what kind of magic you're into and no matter what your skill level is. He has the latest and greatest books that have just been published refurbished with hot new magic, and old classics that are pretty hard to come by these days. That's one of the things that I love about shopping with Don, is that you're able to find such a broad variety of magic. And no matter what you're looking for, you're going to find it at a reasonable price with fast and free shipping available in the United States. If you've never been to his website, hit it up. I've dropped a link down in the description below. I know there have been hundreds of magicians who've discovered Don and become lifelong customers after receiving a tremendous customer service experience with him. So I don't know what you're waiting for. Head on over to his website, check out what he has, and start shopping with Don's Magic and Books. As we get into the value proposition here, there's really only one thing that I would say I would like to have seen more of in here, is some templates or a little more holding your hand. Maybe that's because of what I know. We'll get into some comparisons later. But for example, in the contract section of this, Jason tells you exactly what you need to have in your contract. He talks about having deposits. There's a lot of really great information in there. However, he stops short of providing you with a template to use. Now, in today's world of artificial intelligence and the proliferation of all of those tools, I'm really not sure how big of a problem that is, because you could go to your favorite AI tool and ask it to come up with an extremely reasonable template for you to use as you start to book professional gigs. And it's possible that Jason might offer this in the future to people who buy the book. The book has a list price of $130. However, he does have it available for $100 on his website. This is a pretty hefty investment for most magicians. However, the minute you book your first gig, you're going to cover the cost of the book and still make a margin on it. Which brings us to, who is this book for? In my mind, this is for people who've never really performed magic for pay, or have only done it once or twice for a friend who offered them more or less just a tip for doing the show, maybe free pizza. And I'll add, this is primarily for close-up performers. The business section of the book covers more than just close-up, obviously. However, the very first section about doing the gig, pocket management, all of that is very much focused around doing close-up strolling magic. I have to imagine, without doing an official poll, that the vast majority of you watching fall into this bucket. You do close-up magic, you haven't done a lot of shows for pay, so this book would be for you if you were interested in doing so. But by the way, drop a comment down below with where you are in that journey and if you're interested in doing magic for pay. As we talk about the price and the value content of the book, it's almost impossible to avoid comparing this with some other books that I've come across in my career. The first book I came across was back in 2014 when I was starting to really take my magic seriously. There was a book available on Amazon called How to Become a Professional Magician. It is no longer available, so don't bother trying to look for it, but it was also a pretty meaty self-published book with over 400 pages filled with all kinds of practical advice, templates, and things like that. I used this as my playbook to launch my professional performing career, and it was only $22.50 back in the day. We have Paul Daniels' How to Make Money by Magic. This is a little bit more dated information. Obviously, Paul Daniels had his career heyday a long time ago, so this is going to talk about things like performing on radio, fax machines. There's a lot of information in here that probably isn't as applicable to today's magician. However, there's still quite a bit that is true, and there's a lot of great advice for only $45. Fast forward to some more modern examples. Caroline Raven released a book in the last year or so detailing her journey to become a professional magician and how you can do the same. It's primarily available as an ebook and retails for $47. But probably one of the most direct comparisons you're going to find is The Approach by Jamie D. Grant. This has been around now for many years and is just shy of 300 pages and is only $50. Now, the key differences between the books. Jamie D. Grant's book will teach you how to become a professional strolling magician as well, and it's more of a workbook style. Having read both of the books, Jason's and Jamie's, there's a lot of overlap on what they cover. The key difference being that Jamie's is more of an interactive style book. He wants you to take some exercises, write things down. There are a few templates. And Jason's offers those 12 interviews with other strolling magicians who've done what you want to do. And if there's one thing we know, the best way to shortcut the work to achieve what you want is to find someone who's done what you want to do and talk to them. Jason's done that in his book, and Jamie's book, while great, really stops where Jason's does in those first 174 pages about the show and the business side of things. So at the end of the day, what is the value prop on this, and is it for you? At $100, this is a pretty significant investment. However, it really isn't if you're going to do the work and you're going to start booking paid shows. As I already mentioned, that first gig completely pays for the book, and now everything else on top of that is gravy. Jason is a true professional with decades of experience, and I found the book to be both helpful and inspiring. There's definitely a ton of value here, and you get it in a lot of different ways with all of the practical stuff up front, and then these interviews with all of the other magicians. You're going to learn a lot, not just from Jason's perspective, perspective, but from 12 different perspectives of people who've gone out and become paid performers. So what do you think? Are you an amateur who does magic just for the love of it? Or are you the kind of person that wants to earn a little bit of income from something that you love doing? If you want to hear more about Jamie D. Grant's book, I did a video review of that over here. I'm going to drop a link down in the description below to Jason's book, and I hope if you're serious about performing magic for money, you'll check it out. As always, my friend, I appreciate you watching. And until next time, keep reading.